you're recording. Thank you.
Not recording.
Is it recording?
No, I'm just kidding.
Get you. Never kid with the keeper of the great book. Okay, here we go. Not sure if we watched this one yet. If we did, I'll stop it, but I don't think so.
The crime of conspiracy is simple enough in theory. It's a crime to plan with other people to engage in criminal activity. The details of the law, however, can be complex and nuanced. When does just talk turn into a concrete enough plan to become punishable? Are there free speech implications of punishing talk? How far does a plot have to go before it morphs into a conspiracy? These are some of the many complex questions that permeate this area of law. Punishing conspiracy is designed to deter potential criminals from becoming organized and to ensure that all those who had active parts in criminal activity are held accountable. Conspiracy, like attempt and criminal solicitation, is an inchoate crime. This means that the criminal result need not have occurred for liability to attach. If two people, for example, plan a joint robbery of a store, they can be held liable for conspiracy even if they do not complete the robbery. The substantive crime is robbery, and conspiracy to commit robbery is inchoate because it has not been completed. The law treats the act of agreeing to commit the crime as a distinct evil from the crime itself. This means that a defendant can be charged with both conspiracy to commit a crime and the crime that was completed. This distinction can be illustrated by comparing conspiracy to another inchoate crime, attempt. When a person attempts to commit a crime and then successfully completes that crime, the two crimes merge and the defendant can only be charged with the completed crime. Merger does not occur in conspiracy cases. For example, let's assume that Kyle and Sue decide to murder Charlie. They conspire ahead of time to ambush Charlie in a parking lot after work and stab him to death. They're guilty of conspiracy to commit murder whether they complete the crime or not. Conversely, if their attempt was a spur-of-the-moment decision, not a product of prior deliberation, and Charlie survives the assault, they would be guilty of attempted murder, but not conspiracy to commit murder. If their attempt succeeds in the latter scenario, they would be guilty of murder, but not attempted murder. The modern elements of conspiracy are 1. An agreement, 2. Between two or more people, 3. That is entered into for the purpose of committing a crime, and 4. An overt act.
These are the elements that you'll need to know for conspiracy, so I'll pause it here. Those of you that want to take notes, take a picture. This video is also in your Canvas as part of the PowerPoint presentation. Not sure what slide we're on, but you can find it again if you'd like. But you do need to know the elements of conspiracy. See, a couple of you are still writing, so I'll hold.
Is made in furtherance of the conspiracy. The agreement is the most important element of a conspiracy. In some jurisdictions, to be charged with a conspiracy, all that's required is to form an agreement to commit a crime. The agreement does not need to be formal or an in-depth plan, and its existence can be inferred from the circumstances. This has the effect of allowing courts to find a conspiracy from the circumstances surrounding the completed crime, even if there was no evidence of actual verbalization or paper trail of the plot. Note that even if the underlying goal of the agreement cannot be accomplished because it's physically impossible, the defendants can still be charged with conspiracy. So, for example, if two parties conspire to rob a store that, unbeknownst to them, has permanently closed, they can still be held liable for conspiracy. In the United States, it is universally accepted that at least two people are needed to form a conspiracy. However, there is a split on whether both parties must have guilty minds. The first approach is the bilateral approach. Under the bilateral approach, or rule of consistency, there must be two guilty minds. Both parties to the conspiracy must sincerely agree to commit the crime. In a two-person conspiracy, if one co-conspirator is acquitted, then the other co-conspirator cannot be guilty of conspiracy. Without an agreement, there can be no conspiracy. However, this applies only when two alleged co-conspirators are tried for the same crime in the same trial for the same conspiracy. If one is acquitted per force, then the other must be included as well, as a conspiracy requires at least two guilty participants. If they're tried separately, though, and the first co-conspirator is acquitted or is never charged, then the second co-conspirator can still be charged with the conspiracy. After all, the evidence may be stronger against one person than the other, or different juries might not read the evidence in the same manner. The one that's acquitted doesn't indicate that there's no conspiracy, or that there's insufficient evidence that they both conspired for the purposes of convicting the second conspirator. Under the unilateral approach, which is adopted by the Model Penal Code and some states, only one person needs to have a guilty mind. So, for example, a person can be guilty of conspiracy even if the other party is in fact an undercover police officer, or the other party has no intention of actually carrying out the criminal actions contemplated. Let's now look at the requirement of an overt act. Most jurisdictions require that, in addition to agreeing to commit a crime, at least one member of the conspiracy must take an action in furtherance of the illegal objective. This requirement of an overt act serves to distinguish mere talk from a plan that contemplates the performance of an illegal activity. Typically, any act taken in furtherance of the conspiracy will be sufficient, but some states require that the defendant take a more substantial step. Let's return to the example of Kyle, Sue, and Charlie. You may recall that Kyle and Sue have decided to kill Charlie. Kyle and Sue spend hours planning how they're going to kill Charlie. So far, though, in most jurisdictions, they are not yet guilty of conspiracy. After all, to overcome a potential defense argument that they were merely talking or describing what they wish might happen would not be easy. Now, however, assume that Sue goes out and buys a pair of sharp steak knives with which to commit the murder. It's now apparent that the planning was more than mere talk. Sue's overt act demonstrates the seriousness of the plan, and both Kyle and Sue could be held liable for conspiracy to commit murder. Most jurisdictions require a specific illegal object for there to be a crime of conspiracy. However, some states make it a crime to conspire even to perform legal activities where the object of the plan is to engage in behavior that would be harmful to the public health. An example of this would be a conspiracy to run a loan shark business. While it may not be a statutory criminal act to lend money to people at a high interest rate, running a loan shark operation may be considered injurious to the public health. Thus, the planning of this venture could be considered the crime of conspiracy in some jurisdictions. Conspiracy is a specific intent crime. Specific intent crimes require that the defendant act with a specific goal in mind. In the case of conspiracy, the defendant must intend to agree on a plan to commit an act and must intend to achieve the illegal goal of the conspiracy. If either of these intents are missing, then the defendants cannot be charged with conspiracy. Let's once again return to Kyle and Sue. Kyle and Sue agreed to kill Charlie. Kyle hates Charlie and really intends to murder him. Sue, on the other hand, believes it's all a joke. She thinks they're just going to scare Charlie, but that they won't hurt him in any way. Since Sue doesn't intend to commit the underlying offense of murder, she cannot be charged with conspiracy. Kyle could only be charged with conspiracy if the jurisdiction subscribes to the unilateral approach that we discussed earlier, which requires only a single guilty mind in a conspiracy. To sum up, while conspiracy is a complex crime, the common denominator is that criminal conspiracies require agreements, intent to agree, intent to accomplish an illegal objective, and usually at least one overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy.
Okay, a lot of information about how conspiracies work. Focus on the elements.
I saw war, I saw wounding, I saw shooting.
So millions of children walk.
Go away. Sorry about that. Okay. Focus on the elements of the crime. Two or more people. Know that there's unilateral and bilateral. You really don't need to know the difference between the two, just know that they exist. Bilateral, two guilty minds; unilateral, one guilty mind will suffice. Elements of the crime, two or more people. They must have the guilty intent, the mens rea. What we first learned about, mens rea is still here. Conspiracy unfolds the ultimate act that it aims to bring about does not have to occur for the parties to be a conspiracy. You don't have to kill somebody, right? To be found guilty of a conspiracy to kill somebody. I was working in St. Quentin, death row, and one of the guys that was housed up there in the block, he was just awaiting his date, and I'm talking to him. What did you do? What heinous crime did you do? He said, well, I plotted to kill my wife. He had every intent to have his wife killed. He didn't have the gall to do it himself, so he hired it out. He conspired with some other people to have his wife killed, and actually paid for this to happen. Somehow the police found out about it. They intervened before the wife was actually ever harmed. They arrested the people involved. The actual hitter, the guy that was going to commit the act, got less of a sentence than the husband. The main brain, the one that forked out the money, already had paid for the hit, the whole bit. He got sentenced to death. That's how serious a conspiracy can be. Yet, no one was ever killed. Okay? So, conspiracy can be very dangerous, but it's also difficult to prove. Because you've got to have the players. Most of the time, in a conspiracy, when they're prosecuting, the players turn on each other for a more lenient sentence. And it really turns out is who's going to rap first to testify on the other. That's just the way it works. And they get leniency. It's not fair, I don't like it, but that's just the way it is. Plurality requirement, the agreement for the joint purpose of unlawful ends. Requirement has both mens rea, actus rea elements. Agreement between two individuals on a desired outcome without a plan to achieve the outcome is not a conspiracy. Okay. You have to have the desired outcome. Whether we're robbing a bank, robbing a liquor store, burglarizing a home, yeah.
So what if I wanted to rob a bank, but I didn't know which one I wanted to rob, but I had all the equipment? Would that count or not?
No. You're missing one of the elements. Yeah, you have the intent, but you don't have a clue, really. You have to know which bank you want to rob, otherwise how is that a crime? If I'm the district attorney and I'm proving that you intend to rob a bank, first thing the defense is going to say, which bank is my client robbing? Well, we really don't know. You gotta have a complete plan. That's kind of what this is saying in the second bullet. You gotta have a complete plan, not a half-baked one. Wharton's rule, here it is. An agreement by two persons to commit a particular crime cannot be prosecuted as a conspiracy when the crime is of such a nature as necessarily require the participation of two people, such as adultery. Okay, such as adultery. Agreement by two people to commit a crime. When the crime is of such nature as to necessarily require participation. Two people, adultery. Two confiding adults married to someone else. Military still takes this real serious, by the way. Okay? But out in the private sector, not so much. I don't think I've ever even heard of anyone being charged with conspiracy to commit adultery. You have?
I mean, have you ever seen someone get charged with actual adultery?
No. No. I've only heard, I don't even know of a case, but I only heard the military still takes it really serious. Yeah, they don't play that.
Yeah, I had a captain that got in trouble for that.
See, there you go, in the military, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, the military. But I don't, like I said, in the private world, not so much. It's a shame, but it's not. So is it a conspiracy if two people consent? Think about this one. Consensual sex between two partners, is that a conspiracy? Two people are involved. But what's the crime? The adultery would be the crime. But not really. And that's where Wharton's rule, it was a case, and I think it happened a long time ago in England. If you're interested, look it up. Wharton's case. So in this case, you have two consenting adults. It's not a conspiracy. Required intent, prosecution is required to prove that the defendant specifically intended to affect the commission of the unlawful act. Back to the mens rea. No matter how many times we're gonna restate the criminal intent, it all falls back into mens rea. An apparent co-conspirator does not need to have any criminal intent for the other party in a conspiracy to be convicted of the offense of a conspiracy. I don't like that. That if there's two people, like in the example, where one just thought it was a joke, we were gonna scare him. I didn't know we were ever gonna hurt him. Well, she's not guilty of a conspiracy. Then, on the other hand, ignorance is no excuse. Okay, not an excuse. So just because you didn't know, I don't buy that, but that's the way the rule works. Yeah.
Could you use it as a, like, case, like, oh, I
Yes.
didn't know he was.
Absolutely, that's why I don't like it. If two people are charged with a crime, the one we have on video, we have recordings, we have testimony, they were the aggressor, they're the ones that carry out the act. But the other person, the conspirator, is in the background. All of us said, well, I didn't know. That's exactly what they're gonna do. I thought it was a joke, we were only gonna scare them. What if they're the brains? They're the ones that called the shot, they're the ones that did all the planning. Also knowing that they had a built-in excuse, that in case they get busted, they can always say, well, I didn't know. That's why I don't like that rule. Yeah, but that is the rule. Parties to a conspiracy. The law does not require that each party who participates in a conspiracy form an agreement with all of the other parties. That's a big deal. When you're talking about a larger conspiracy to defraud, to traffic narcotics, there's so much, prostitution rings, international type of criminal behavior. There's all kinds of criminal acts that involves more than two people. Still a conspiracy, but remember, it's only a conspiracy until it's a crime. Once they've committed the crime, the conspiracy drops, now we charge them with the actual crime. So if it's a conspiracy to traffic narcotics, and we have 30 people involved, from the growers to the people that handle the narcotics and prepare it for sale, to the distributors, to the finance people, and the ones calling the shots. Everybody has a role. There's two types of, and I don't have a marker. I'm gonna do my best with hand signals to show you this. Two types of organizational structures, okay? One is top down. You have the leader, talks to this guy, talks to this guy, talks to this guy, and most organizations are set up that way, where the worker bees down here pretty much are following the instructions from the top dog, okay? Organizational flow chart. Criminal organizations do use this type of organization, but there's a flaw. What happens is these people down here know who they're working for and who that person's working for and so forth, and usually they know who the shot caller is, so that identity isn't protected. Okay, so it's got some problems there. The other one is called the wagon wheel, and I think the textbook talks about it somewhere. If not in this chapter, it'll be coming up. And picture a wheel with spokes, and in the middle there's a central hub. Usually that's the people calling the shots. One or more, could be one, could be 2, could be 3, but that's the center of the organization. They send information directly out to all their workers. So this person has no knowledge of the other person because they're receiving individualized instructions. So some organizations do use this wagon wheel approach with the spokes. Think about that. You're a criminal. Which method would you prefer? How would you run your criminal enterprise? Wheel? 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 Wagon wheel? This kind of protects you, right? Because that way nobody knows the rest of the people. So if somebody's busted here, you just cut them out of the picture. You're protected. Plausible deniability. Anybody would use the other type of structure? Flow chart? Some do. Doesn't work, but some people do. Keep that in mind when we're talking parties to conspiracy. Oh, there it is right there. Wheel conspiracy and chain conspiracy. Questions? Yes.
So, like, in mobs or just gangs in general, how are they not able to get the top person if chain command would be easier to
They know. Yeah.
How would that work? Like, would they just lie like, oh, I'm not actually here?
Sure they do. But there's other ways for identification, especially gangs. I'm not a big gang guy. I hate gangs. I think they're a bunch of morons. I really do. I have no respect for them. And I've dealt with them, God, for too long. Because they're idiots. I really, they are. They think they're all that. Separate them. Cut them from the herd. They're a bunch of cowards, one-on-one. But when they got their little posse behind them, it's all about we are going to do this and we are going to do that. Isolate them. Watch how quick, literally, they'll pee on themselves. I used to enjoy doing that. But when we're talking about the conspiracy thing, we are identifying the gangs, we take action. They mark themselves. They take pride, they fly colors. Okay, one of the first things you do when you're processing, even in intake, strip them down, look for tattoos, and you photograph it. And it goes in their file. Known associates, who do they hang out with? You chronicle it. Another known gang member. That's 2 strikes. It only takes 3. Usually they self-admit. Now they're a validated, that's the key word, validated gang member. And in order for them to get that jacket off of them, they gotta debrief. Anybody ever heard that word, debrief? Yeah? No? Yeah? That's be a rat. That's the only way out. You gotta tell me everything you've ever done, everyone you've ever come into contact. Takes hours to debrief. And when these guys sit down and they wanna talk to you, bring a lunch. Because you're gonna be writing for quite a while. And they do debrief because they're tired of the lifestyle. Most often, an attempt's been made on their own life. They don't want them in the gang anymore, so they try to take them out. Yeah, that's a way to run a business. Okay, so, yes.
Let's just say I hang out with someone that's in a gang and they get in trouble. Would
Yeah.
I be part of it?
You could be.
Right.
What's that? Birds of a feather? My dad used to say, you wanna know what somebody's like? Just look at their friends. It's not a good picture for you.
Yeah.
Now, doing backgrounds for law enforcement, for employment, absolutely. I'd look at who your friends are. Matter of fact, I've been talking to a background office. They're from CDC. Because I wanted to get somebody from the recruitment office to come down. I ended up talking to their background investigator. So she said either she's gonna come down herself or she's gonna send a sergeant down here and talk to you guys about backgrounds. Specifically for CDC. But the way these backgrounds work are very similar for any law enforcement agency. So even if you're not interested in them, it's still something to pay attention to. Also, social services. If you're working with children, things like that, you're gonna go through something similar with this, these people will tell you about. Background. One of the things we look at, we talk to your friends, we talk to your family, we talk to your neighbors. And that all goes towards, you're gonna know more about yourself when they're done with you than you ever thought. That's how good they are. Yeah.
I feel like it's, every job gives that kind of background check.
Mhm.
I just got hired at a casino, and they're gonna do a thorough background check on me.
Yes, they are.
And they said it's gonna go back 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm only 18, so they're gonna go back when I was like 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I did background investigations for Delano PD and Delano Return to Custody Facility. I went back day one. Yeah. Where were you born? Who are your parents? Talk to your parents. We're giving you authority here. Think about it. We're giving you a weapon. You have the power of arrest to hurt another individual. We want to make sure we got the right person. And even with all the caution, they still make mistakes. There's a lot of people, the officer or Sergeant Bussey, he admitted it. He says, yeah, there's people out there shouldn't be wearing a badge. They can't catch them all. I work with a couple like, how did you get to the academy? They fall through the cracks. It's a shame. Okay, so let's focus back. Conspiracy, will conspiracy, they call it the chain, but you guys get the idea, right? Conspiracies require at least two individuals, so at least two must be convicted of the crime. The video did a good job of that. In a bilateral, both have to be guilty of the crime, because if one's not, the other cannot be. Just the way it is. Questions? No. Good. Accomplices now. Let's talk about accomplices. One who assists in the commission of a crime but does not commit the actus rea. Doesn't commit the act. It's called an accomplice. Often present or directly aids in the commission of the crime. Relationship between the person who commits the crime and his or her accomplice is one of complicity. Okay. Think of a crime. Let's go back to robbing the bank. We robbed the bank, we got away with it. We're on the run, we're driving. The cops are already at the bank, they don't even know who we are yet. They haven't looked at any CCC. So we're gone. We didn't think we were gonna get away with it. We're not the brightest people, by the way, my group of guys. We're not the brightest. So we get away, we said, now what are we gonna do? Let's go to my uncle's house. He lives out in the country. Drive to my uncle's house. Knock on the door, hey, uncle, we just robbed the bank. Hey, come on in and tell me all about it. My uncle's not that bright either. So we all go into the house, we're sitting around having a couple beers. So we need somewhere to hide the money and lay low. Hey, I got just the spot. Bring it on down here. No, he buries it for us, hides it. Okay, we gotta go. So we take off, we're going. A couple days later, we get busted. Again, we're not the brightest. So we tell on ourselves, we're scared. Didn't think we were gonna really get away with it. Cops say, where's the money? Bank wants the money back. And if you help, here we go with the first to snitch. The first one to tell us where the money's at is gonna get leniency. It's at his uncle's house. I'll show you exactly. Give me a map. They go knocking at the uncle's door. Uncle lets him in. Hey, your nephews were here. Yeah. They leave you with anything? Yeah. Tell you he's not that bright. Show us where the money's at. It's right here. Takes him down. Police take the money. Then they arrest my uncle. Accomplice after the fact. He was complacent. Played no part in the actual robbing of the bank, but he was instrumental after the fact. An accomplice after the fact. Questions?
Isn't there a specific term for when someone is aware or knows, like has a knowledge of a crime that's about it?
Accessory.
Okay.
Yeah, accessory.
Mm.
But at this point, we're talking about accomplice. That one's coming out. Okay, let's see what this video says.
This time, we'd like for family members to move forward and put on your soldiers' Army one-star badge.
Today's topic is accomplice liability. I'll talk about circumstances when an accomplice can be charged, even if the primary suspect can get away. My name is Steve Servalik, and I'm a panel attorney with ASCOPS in Arizona. Imagine this scenario. A call comes in for a burglary in progress. The caller says that there are 3 men dressed in all black wearing ski masks that went into a store and were seen carrying out cases of beer. The call also reports a black F-150 idling out front. Officers arrive and the men in the store flee, dropping the beer and pushing a bystander down as they run away. The The officers stopped the driver, the sole occupant of that F-150. He claims that he didn't know anything about what his friends were doing in the store, and they never actually made it back to the truck before officers arrived. Under Arizona law, that F-150 driver can go to jail as an accomplice to shoplifting. ARS section 13301 defines an accomplice as a person who, with the quote, intent to promote or facilitate the commission, end quote, provides means or opportunity for another person to commit an offense. Additionally, the F-150 driver can also be charged as an accomplice to assault. This is because committing an assault, pushing a bystander down, is a reasonably foreseeable consequence of committing shoplifting. Therefore, the accomplice liability attaches to this charge as well. In other words, the driver of the F-150 is an accomplice to the shoplifting, even if he didn't enter the store with his buddies who actually carried merchandise out of the store. It's reasonable to infer that his friends, dressed as they were, intended to shoplift, and that the driver's decision to drop them off and wait nearby was intending to either promote, that is, actively encourage, or facilitate, that is, make the crime easier. If evidence exists to show that the getaway driver was providing other criminals with the means for his cohorts to accomplish the crime, that driver can be charged as an accomplice. If you have questions or comments about accomplice liability, please feel free to leave them in the comment.
Okay, two mistakes in that presentation. The first one, he said one of the robbers, would-be robbers, pushed one of the other shoppers to the ground, called it an assault. We know that's not an assault. Anytime there's contact, that's a battery. Okay? Contact of any sort. It could be spittle, it could be anything. Contact from one person to the other, that's a battery. An attempted battery is the assault. I tried to do this, but I missed. Okay, so get that one clear. And the other one, when he read in quotes, intent, he didn't highlight that the intent hasn't been proven. And that's the tough part on the accomplice. If those would-be thieves were dressed like the little characters showed in the, what was that, black and white striped garb, then yeah, any reasonable person would think, hey, that's the way burglars dress. Maybe in the 30s, but okay, but you get the idea. I'm the driver behind the 150. I got my 3 idiot buddies with me. Remember, we're not very bright. So we're in the truck. They tell me, hey, stop here. I'm, sure, no problem. I pull over. Like, what are you guys gonna do? Well, we're just gonna go get some beer. Okay, I'll wait for you. But they're dressed normally. They'll be right back. I had no idea what they were gonna do. Turns out they go rob the store, push one of the shoppers down, they come bolting out, but the cops are there. Or they see the cops, they go in a different direction. The cops see me in the truck, and I'm still waiting in the truck, and I don't know what the hell's going on. They tell me to stop, I shut the engine off, I said, what's wrong? Are you with those guys? What guys? No, of course I said, yeah, I just stopped here, they were gonna go get some beer. Next thing you want to say? I want a lawyer. If this goes any further, and this is coming from me, I should be oh no, you should always cooperate. Tell them what they need to know. BS. You don't know who you're dealing with. An officer, especially the younger ones, they're trying to make stripes, make a reputation. No matter what you say, they're going to tell you. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They're going to tell you they're going to use it against you. Why would you cooperate? You keep your mouth shut. Nope, I got nothing to say. I want a lawyer. Oh, so you got something to hide? I want a lawyer. It'd be better if you just tell us now, I want a lawyer. If you have enough to arrest me, arrest me. If you don't, may I leave. Don't ever be rude, don't be disrespectful, don't call them names, be professional. They hate it. Don't give them that little bit that they're looking for. You start getting stupid, you're giving them more ammunition to use against you. I felt threatened, so I had to subdue them. I wanted to put them in restraints. And of course you're gonna resist. The minute you resist, it's a free-for-all. Don't do that. Again, I should be telling you, cooperate. I've seen too many cases go south. Overzealous officers, and it gets ugly fast. Back to the conspiracy. Had I known of what they were gonna do, and I saw my buddies take off running, do you think I'm gonna still be parked here for the cops to talk to me? Hell no. I'm gonna take off. And then I see my idiot buddies over here waving at me, come get us, bull, you're on your own. I'm gonna disassociate myself so fast. Yeah. You don't wanna hang out with me and rob a store. Not only will I leave you there, I'll rat on you after the fact. Okay. Questions about this? Accomplice liability. Accessory. Proving an accessory's guilt requires a showing of the following. The crime has to be completed. The defendant knew that the crime had been committed. And the defendant in this case is the one being charged with accessory. The defendant knew that the crime was committed by the individual who was being assisted. And the assistance was personally given by the defendant to the individual who committed the crime. 4 elements. Each of them has to be proven to be charged with accessory. And remember, there's accessory before and after the fact. And it doesn't matter. All 4 elements have to be proven. If you're missing one, maybe the crime was not completed. Not a crime. Or the defendant didn't know that the crime was committed. Not a crime. At least not accessory. We got root diggers. Wait here.
So why are we more like lenient on these type of crimes, but stuff that's more small, like speeding and stuff, we're more strict? Is it because like speeding is more common?
There's no guilt. Remember, you can't, either it happened or didn't. Bussy explained that. No fault, no guilt. You don't have to have the criminal intent in the citations. That's why they're harder, because it's easier to prove. Really, that's all it boils down to. It's easier. The district attorney has all the authority as to what cases they're gonna prosecute. They're not gonna prosecute a case that there's a chance they might lose. They don't like losing. I mean, that's another factor that comes into play.
If you get a ticket and you take it to court and you beat it, it's still stay on your record?
No.
You got it?
Nope. You're found not guilty, the citation goes away.
Or if it's thrown out, is it on your record, or you still off your record?
Good to go. You should make sure though. You gotta follow up. It's always incumbent on you to follow up, make sure that it's discarded. Completely taken off the record. Okay, questions about this? No? Vicarious liability, this is dangerous. This one scares me. Imposes criminal liability on one party for the criminal acts of another party. No limit to corporate settings, not limited to corporate settings. Different from accomplice liability in that vicarious liability is based solely on a recognizable relationship between the defendant and the perpetrator, while accomplice liability is based on affirmative participation in a crime. The latter one means that one had to know of what the other one was doing. Vicarious, you don't even have to know. When I'm working again, I was in charge of the entire unit, sometimes the entire prison. So because of my responsibility, anything that happened during my shift, I'm ultimately responsible. So if you want to go into an inmate cell, beat the crap out of them, leave them there half dead, you're gonna be named in the lawsuit, and I'm gonna be right behind you. Because the line of supervision, that's what vicarious liability scares the hell out of me. I should have known that you had the propensity for violence, that you had a vendetta against this inmate. Shame on me for not knowing. And I will be charged, and I've been named in so many lawsuits, it's ridiculous. Almost 10 years after I separated, I'm still getting summons because of this, vicarious liability. I just happen to be in the chain of command. Okay? Questions about vicarious liability? Anybody in a supervisory position? Nobody.
I used to be.
There's really no reason to, yeah, even military guys, yeah. Is everybody that's under you, you're responsible for it. They do something stupid, it can come back on you, yeah.
So say if a cop discharges his weapon and they review the body cam and there was no reason for him to discharge, can you be liable? for that?
Absolutely. Especially on this sergeant, direct sergeant, they get hit the hardest. Because I was supposed to train him, that he should have known better. Then the training officer, then they go into all the training records. Anytime a weapon's fired, you review all training documents. Shooting review, we call it. It is not. Okay. That was it. Questions about this chapter? No. Have a great weekend, watch some football. I'll see you all on Monday. Oh, you're welcome.